It is day 2 of our selfish summer wellness experience. I am Coriel, founder, creator of Grown Woman TV, and host of the Girl Stop Playing podcast, where I encourage Black women to stop playing with their potential and start working for what they want in life and in love. For those of y'all who are tuning into this experience and it is your first time connecting with me, engaging with me, I am so excited. I told y'all I was gonna look up some better words, some synonyms for excited, but I ain't have time to do it, y'all. If I'm being honest, life came at me fast today. Y'all are going to be able to judge how my day went based on how I show up looking. Okay, and your girl is looking. I put some lip gloss on, so I don't look as raggedy as I first did when I opened my camera and kind of jumped back and scared myself. But y'all, when I tell you I have had 3 full days of momming. Now, don't judge me when I say this because some of y'all are real superheroes out here. Some of y'all are stay-at-home moms, work from home moms, true full-time moms. I'm kind of like a halfway time mom. Like both of my kids leave the house during the day typically, except now it's summertime. So I already have my 3-year-old, but y'all, I had my baby boy, my 18-month-old today as well. And y'all already know the weekends be real crazy for mom. So aside from the weekend being crazy, I had him today, which was unexpected. So I'm looking rough. I'm feeling tired. Dinner is not getting cooked today. Okay, I had to order some Uber Eats, and life is lifing, which is the whole point and purpose behind this selfish summer experience. Because so often we get caught up in these titles, we get caught up with these roles and these responsibilities, and we don't often find time for ourselves. We don't often intentionally spend time with ourselves and doing things that benefit ourselves. And so I had to show up here tonight. I am glad that you showed up here for yourself. And this is a testament to how we have to be willing to show up for ourselves every single day because we don't have a choice but to show up for other people. So a lot of times we will go to work and give 110%, go into, our role as a mom or wife giving 110%, but then when it comes to ourselves, when it comes to our self-care, when it comes to doing what it is that we need to do, that we know we need to do to move the needle in our own lives, we will make excuses for why we can't do it, why we don't have the time, the energy, the resources to be able to show up for ourselves. So definitely want to commend y'all for being here, for committing to this 14 days together. And hopefully this 14-day experience will encourage you and inspire you to keep it going. Now, last night for day 1, I gave y'all a little homework. I gave y'all a little bit of an assignment. And for those of y'all who have already gotten into your homework, I would love to hear from you in the chat. If you have considered the intention that you want to set, what you truly want to walk away from this experience, knowing or understanding, or who you want to walk away, connected to, if you're really here because you need a community or a support group, a support circle. What is your intention? If you don't mind sharing in the chat, I would love to just touch and agree with you and send you some positive vibes for those intentions. If you have had a moment to think about an unhealthy habit that you're going to put down, or a healthy habit that you are going to pick up over these next 14 days, and you don't mind sharing, please feel free to share that in the chat as well. And if you have thought about a hobby that you want to look into or try out, let me know that, y'all. I was hoping that my Amazon package arrived before we went live tonight so that I could show y'all that I'm not just giving y'all a checklist of things to do, but that these are actually things that I'm doing too. So tomorrow I will be able to actually show y'all, but today I'm just going to tell y'all. So I ordered a paint by numbers kit, which I'm super excited about because I didn't realize that people were using paint by numbers kits and creating like these masterpieces. So if you remember coloring by numbers when we were little kids, you can do the same thing with paint. So I'm excited to see how that comes out. And then I also ordered a little like crochet kit for beginners, which I never in a million years thought that I would be ordering a crochet kit, but I'm just out here trying. I'm just out here trying something new, picking up some hobbies that will, again, give me time to take my mind away from all of the responsibilities, sit down somewhere, get still, get quiet, and spend some time, doing some peaceful, relaxing activities. So I am definitely putting my money where my mouth is. This is not just something that I, think y'all should do. These are things that I'm definitely incorporating as well. So, in the spirit of self awareness, which is like one of the founding kind of principles behind this whole experience, I have definitely personally learned the benefit, the value of being as self aware as we possibly can. It has taken me far personally and professionally. And the thing about self awareness is not necessarily um, thinking that you self-awareness is really being willing to realize that you don't have it all together. It's really being willing to realize that there are some areas of opportunity. Okay, let's say it like that. There are some areas of opportunity in your life, and all of us have areas of opportunity, but we run into trouble when we try to overlook those areas of opportunity, when we try to pretend like those areas of opportunity don't exist, or when we develop this I am who I am, so you got to take me as I am type of mentality. Whether we're talking about personal relationships or we're talking about like your professional partnerships, if we are not doing our part to become as self aware as we possibly can, and not just self aware, step one is admitting you got a problem, but step two, immediately after, you got to be willing to take accountability for those issues and then take action to work through those issues and actively make changes. And so one of the concepts that I, recently, I would say maybe in the last 2 years, came is attachment styles and attachment theory. So most of us are familiar with the five love languages, right? When you get a new boo, in them first 30 days, you be sending that little test, you be sending that little quiz. Hey, boo, what's your love language? Take this little quiz. I want to learn a little bit about you. As excited as we are to get to know that new boo, that new potential partner, we got to be just as excited to get to know ourselves, because the more we know about ourselves, the more we can embrace ourselves and show up comfortable in our own skin and confident, confident with ourselves, because that confidence will definitely carry you so much further than somebody that's trying to shy away from their truth. So, one of the ways that we can gain more self-awareness is through learning your attachment style. Now, I am a novice when it comes to attachment styles, and most of the topics that we're talking about here at the summit, these are things that I am just familiarizing myself with and learning about. But when I learned about attachment styles, and then I started digging into how your childhood experience, like how you related to your caregivers, your parents, for most of us, how that is impacting your personal and professional relationships, like how you relate to other people. I went down a rabbit hole, y'all. I am a nerd when it comes to self awareness. I want to know my personality type. I want to know, whether you believe in zodiac or not. I have been down the rabbit hole on my sun sign, my moon sign, my birth, what is it, the numerology stuff, like your birth, what is it, your birth number. I don't know what it is. Y'all see, I really truly am like a novice at these things, but I want to know a little bit about as much as I possibly can, to know as much about myself as possible. So attachment styles is definitely a rabbit hole you can go down. If you have not taken the quiz yet to see where you fall in line, it is linked in your email, so you can definitely do that. If you have taken it, then this conversation is really going to be helpful for you, because you're going to be able to dig a little bit deeper into what attachment theory is. And we have an expert here to help us do just that. Now, I told y'all I called in all of my favors. Okay. I am plugging y'all with all of my people. So I am super honored to introduce y'all to my therapist. Okay. I consider her, I don't know if she considers herself this or if she claims it, but I feel like she's an attachment theory specialist. Like, she has an entire program around, attachment styles and, educating you on attachment styles. So without further ado, I am going to bring up Taylor Chandler. Welcome to the summit.
Hey, y'all. I'm happy to be here.
So excited to have you here. Now, I am not going to lie. I really shy away from introducing people, especially people who have a laundry list of credentials, because I don't like messing up people's stuff. I want to make sure we put some respect on your name. So please, before we get into it, go ahead and give yourself a proper introduction.
Yeah, my name's Taylor Chandler. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I'm also a certified health coach and transformational leadership coach.
See, that was not what was going to come out of my mouth. So I'm glad I let you do that. Okay, so Taylor, I want to know is my first question is like, where did attachment styles come from? Because I honestly think when we did that tonight's conversation
Mhm,
taping, that was the
mhm.
first time I had ever even heard of the concept. And I immediately got on my phone and was Googling, like, what is this that everybody else seems to know about but me? So, where did this come from? Is it new or am I just late?
So, good question because like to me it's a little bit of both. I think it's new in the sense of like it's kind of now like a buzz topic, like sort of how things become pop psychology. But it's also new when in the context of research and the medical field and the psychotherapy field. So, and the research really started in the 1960s, which I consider very new. And there's a whole conversation about that, about what we should have expected our parents to know and how they should have, raised us in a way that helped us to be secure kids. But this wasn't, when we say like the research started in the 60s, that means that it goes through a long process before it even becomes really like available to the public. And so the research started in the 60s. So it's taken it takes a long time to get through all of the red tape of research and all of the academic part of the whole thing before we start to get to a book like the book that a lot of people have read. It's called Attached by his last name is Amir, and he's actually a medical doctor. He's not even a therapist, and he picked up on attachment, people's relationships having an effect on their physical health, which now we know that people's attachment styles really do affect blood pressure, their heart health, I mean, all kinds of things. So, long answer to a short question. It started in the 60s, but it really just started to become more poppy like in the last 10 years.
I think even accepting that concept is like taboo for most of us because, we talked a little bit about this last night, like Western medicine versus Eastern medicine.
Mhm.
Western medicine separates everything. Western medicine, when you go to your doctor and you complain about a symptom, I have not one time had a doctor ask me, how am I doing emotionally? Because they
Mhm.
know that there's a tie between my emotional health and my physical health. Except when I go to the Chinese doctor and he's asking me, like, how's my stress levels? Am I laughing? I've never had a doctor ask me, how much am I laughing? You need to laugh more.
Mhm.
Those are not conversations that we are used to having. And because of that, we don't usually connect the dots of, well, if I am in isolation, this is something that I learned about myself. Okay. If I'm in isolation, if I'm isolating myself, or if I have these strained personal relationships, if I am not fulfilled within my relationships, that can literally start having physical impact on my physical health. And so a part of this whole summit, Taylor, is just to cause some aha moments, like to
Mhm.
have some light bulbs go off for people to be like, wait a minute, is my blood pressure up? Because
Mhm.
I had this specific issue when I was a child, or, am I not married yet because I got these mommy issues? Hello, somebody.
Yeah.
We are not relating the things. We are separating every single thing, and it's all within us. It's all within us.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I want to just kind of set the scene for, or set the stage for, is encouraging the ladies to know that, and I would love for you to do this, regardless of what your childhood looked like, you still have an opportunity to learn, grow, and heal. So can you talk a little bit about just that part so people don't
Yeah.
get caught up on their childhood?
Yeah, and I love that you're starting with that because probably a mistake that I've made when I did a lot of workshops years ago was I started with all the problems and people would get very overwhelmed. It was like, and I would always get questions in the chat like, but can I change it? So I love that you're starting there because yeah, you can for sure. Your attachment is flexible. I think that a lot of people they're not coming out of childhood. We are not coming out of childhood with secure attachment, but we can change it. The two words I think that are most important is it needs your attention and it needs your intention. Like you got to put your awareness on it and then you got to put some action behind the awareness, but you can absolutely change your attachment.
So, okay. So, what are the four attachment styles? And
Mhm.
does everybody fall into one of these categories or no?
You can have a mix. So I'll outline the four different styles first. There's two categories. One category is the insecure category, and the other category is the secure category. On the secure side, we just have the secure attachment style, so that takes care of one. So we have three others. One on the insecure side is the anxious preoccupied style. A second attachment style on the insecure side is the dismissive avoidance style, and then we have the fearful avoidance style. The anxious preoccupied style, some indicators of that style, someone might identify themselves as, or other people have identified you as, being clingy. You find yourself ruminating over the relationship, like what went wrong, even if no one said that anything is wrong. You're thinking about what kind of mistakes that you've made, or how you might have messed the relationship up, and now they're never going to talk to you again, or they're going to leave you. Another indicator, you might look over red flags and rush into a relationship before actually discerning whether this is a relationship that's actually healthy and safe for you. So the anxious preoccupied style can move pretty fast emotionally, even when the other person's not moving with you. And the anxious preoccupied style usually does, and they typically start to want to work on their attachment style when they've had enough relationships with, or a really significant relationship with, a dismissive avoidance style, which is that second style I mentioned. So the dismissive avoidance style is going to minimize the relationship. They'll withdraw when things get too close or too intimate. And people find them to be surface level, superficial. It doesn't mean that you're like a bad person, but it does mean that they tend to be guarded. Which is like bait for the anxious preoccupied style, who really wants them to open up and really wants to be that special person that they get, like that warm part of a cold dismissive avoidant style, which they get sometimes. We call that intermittent reinforcement, where every once in a while you get a signal that they're really going to go all in with you, and then they back up again. The fearful avoidance style is going to be a mix of both. So that's that combination. It's in one person that has an anxious preoccupied style and a dismissive avoidance style all mixed into one. And it's just reacting off of whatever the other person's giving. So the other person starts to come close, that the fearful avoidant tends to withdraw more, and the other person starts to go away. The fearful avoidant starts to come closer, rather than having more of like a steady state of being the clingy one or being the one that withdraws. They're going to do either one based on what the other person's doing.
So if you are out here getting ghosted, y'all, and this might not be you. Let's talk about your friends, okay? Take the pressure off yourself. Think about your homegirls, okay? And you can identify, usually, based on these descriptions, the homegirl that is like always getting played. She's always in love, and then she's getting ghosted, right? That could be one type of person. The person that like rushes into the relationships, or the person who he's never good enough. Something's always wrong. It's never going to work. You know, like they can never be satisfied. I think we can definitely all identify, to your last point, in kind of being reactionary sometimes, like depending on what you give me, you know, you're going to get this. So we can show up, you know, based on what somebody's given us. But then your true attachment style, would that be what you're naturally prone to?
So that's a good question. And I think it's a difficult question I think it's a difficult question to answer, because you might naturally, or regularly might be a good word, regularly be in situations that aren't very triggering. Maybe you're single, and maybe you live by yourself, and maybe you live away from family, and there's just not a whole lot of opportunities for you to get triggered. It's almost like you to think about what your attachment style is in like worst case scenarios. Like if someone is triggering you, how do you typically respond? Do you typically run out the door? Do you typically break something off before you have a conversation? Well, then I'd probably call your attachment style more avoidant. Or do you, when you're triggered, do you find yourself apologizing, over explaining yourself? You might lean anxious. So you think about like what happens when you're triggered, and that's going to give you an idea of where your attachment style really is, rather than thinking like, oh, well, I'm at peace because I just don't have contact with a whole lot of people, or a whole lot of people that are important to me, or I'm not dating right now. And yeah, you seem fine. And then you start dating again, and all of a sudden now we need therapy.
Because listen, it is real easy to be a secure attachment when you ain't got no choice.
Right,
Okay,
right.
you ain't got no and this is the mind-boggling part. And Taylor, I gotta schedule a session with you, so because there have been new developments. But
Okay.
you'll be real healed until somebody triggers you. You know, like me, for example, I am super self-aware. I know all of the information. I got logic down pat. I
Mhm.
know better. But baby, it'd be hard to do better sometimes. When
Right.
you get in those certain, those situations, and that is, I think, a part of the healing journey, I hope, is that it is truly a journey. It's not a destination. You are learning every single day, and you don't know what's going to trigger you.
Mhm.
So I love that there is hope that we can get to the secure attachment. But we're never going to be perfect. So I guess what is
Mhm.
ideal? Is it to be able to manage your emotions regardless of the situation you're in, or like what can we aspire to?
Yeah. So, like, what's realistic, right? Like you're gonna have triggers. We're all gonna have triggers for however long, right? And as long as we have relationships, there's always gonna be something to react to. So, I like for people to think about things in terms of like process rather than like a black and white outcome. Like I'm either healed or I'm not. Think about it more like when something does trigger me, am I able to catch the trigger, and do I manage it as best as I can, as often as I can? Like as best as I can, as often as I can, which leaves some room for like sometimes it's just not gonna happen. Like sometimes you really gonna get a different version of Taylor. Like it's just not like I just don't have it in me in that moment. So, but and am I aware enough to know when I've missed it? Right? Like, am I aware enough to know that wasn't a good moment? That really wasn't how I want to show up. And can I own that? That's a much more realistic healed person than like I just never get triggered. Nothing ever bothers me. That's not real.
So the expectation is not for there to be no triggers. The
Right.
expectation is for you to know how to manage those triggers the majority of the time.
The majority of the time, as
Let's
often
say
as
80-20. Can we
possible.
say 80-20, or should it be like 90-10?
Let's see. If I had to give it a ratio, I want you to hit 90-10. I want you to hit 90-10. That's like a A minus, right? In school now, a B plus A minus. I think that's good. That's really
Okay,
good.
90-10. So we are not expecting perfection. And this is the other part too, not seeking perfection. Because once you gain this self-awareness and once you realize, okay, you ain't perfect either, you got some ish that you're still working out, then that starts to adjust the lens at which you are judging everybody else.
Mhm.
Specifically these men that we be, get into these relationships with, because we will have the expectation of them to have it all together, not realizing that we don't even have it all together.
Yeah.
So what should be our expectation, or should we have an expectation in a relationship? Like if you are entering a relationship, you are, being courted by someone, and you realize, okay, wait a minute, he has this little tendency to do XYZ. How
Mhm.
much leeway should we give,
Mhm.
to say, okay, I see you're healing, but you're clearly not healed.
Right.
How do we get out of our own way by expecting perfection, but then also not
Mhm.
settling for less?
The big thing with that is someone able to hear you? Like, can someone receive feedback? I think that is so much more important than are they checking all of the healed boxes. I mean, it's probably a certain number of boxes that if they're not checked, it's probably going to be a problem, like regardless of how much feedback they can receive, right? That's a different conversation. But when something happens, right? Because something will happen where you notice like, okay, when there's a conflict, you tend to you don't text back as quickly, or I don't hear from you for a day, and that's not really like you. Or when there's a conflict, you're like blowing up my phone. Like, are you okay? Like, is someone able to receive the feedback and take ownership of their behavior? I think that is first and foremost, that's the most important thing. Right. And then from there, I gotta say this because sometimes, right, when you say something, you want somebody to just like fix it right away. You got to give people some time and space because we have to understand, right? At this point, I mean, most people, right, are that are consuming your content and that are consuming my content 30 plus, right? Age 30 plus for most people. That means that they've been living this whole time doing things in a certain way. And it could be the very first time that somebody has pointed something out to them, or that they cared enough to listen. If they're really into you, they go listen. They're going to try to understand like what you're talking about. And so we got to give people time and space to change and and reconfigure their patterns, which takes, for different people, it's different paces.
So what is the attachment style? Y'all, I end up telling all my business. What is the attachment style when you can just cut somebody off and never talk to them again?
Avoid it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Avoidant.
Yeah.
So if you are an avoidant attachment style, and y'all ain't here, so I'm using myself as an example, but if you are an avoidant attachment style and your go-to is, okay, you messed up one time and I'm never going to talk to you again,
Hmm.
that's not healthy, right?
Right.
How do you gauge where like the red flag is versus like the black flag, Grim
Hmm.
Reaper is over with? Like, is there an attachment style that, okay, if they display this behavior, it's too far gone, you should just never talk to them again? Like, how can you
Yeah.
be a reasonable person?
Yeah. I love these questions. And I think it's different for different people, right? And we all have different triggers, different traumas in our past. There are certain things that for person A, there's something that happened in their past that if this thing, like if you do this thing again, right, or you do this thing, this is the third time you do this thing, and it reminds me, and it's something that was really traumatic in my childhood. And person B, they get that same trigger, but they don't have a history of that. It's bothersome, but they don't have a history that is being triggered in that moment. They're gonna have different responses to that thing. So I think different people have different things. But I will try to answer the question a little bit in a more grounded way. But I do want to make space for, for you, a certain trigger might be a very different effect than on me, and vice versa. And that is okay. Um, Now there are certain things, if we will call it a black flag, that are like more of, let's call them like just general deal breakers, not like we need to have a conversation about this, but like this is just not okay. We're talking about things like abuse, right? When we're talking about emotional abuse, it can be so gray, and we really don't have a lot of concrete ways to perceive that, and therefore then to measure it, to say like, well, how much of a gaslight is enough to say
How much of
this
a
is something,
ghost
how
is
much of a
acceptable?
ghost, okay, how much of a minimization, how much of a denial or a dismissal, right? Like we have different levels of tolerance for things. There's so much nuance, but I do think that when we're talking about like what is reasonable to say, like this is a cutoff and it's a never again, that's when we're talking about things like abuse. And of course the things that are able to be measured more easily are things like physical abuse, things that where children are being harmed, or children, or even at the threat of harm, right, to you or a child. Those are more of like the very clear cut things. And then we have all this gray area in between of emotional problems that you may or may not have capacity to deal with other person.
Got you. So if this new boo displays something that reminds you of the last one that you got drugged by, that is obviously going to trigger you in a different way than a woman who has never experienced that. And yes, she don't like it, but it's not reminding her of this terrible experience.
Yes. And even then when I just hear that small like example, I hear in that time, right? Like if that was your ex, your most recent ex, that can be very different than your ex in college. And this was 15 years ago. So there's so much gray.
So much gray. And I want to take it back to the childhood part,
Mhm.
because as I'm having these conversations with just so many therapists, and having these really like therapeutic conversations on the podcast, it all goes back to childhood, literally, like
Yeah.
every single thing.
Yeah.
Which is why as mothers we got to get our ish together, because we will literally ruin the next generation. That's a lot of pressure, trust me, I know. But if we don't get ourselves together, the impact that we are making, I mean, it is literally monumental.
Yeah.
So when it comes to childhood, though, I feel like it's a lot of times just black or white. It's either like you were abused as a child or you had this great childhood. But coming from a two-parent home does not mean that was a healthy childhood.
Right.
Just because you were not physically abused does not mean that you had a healthy childhood. So from your professional experience, what are some of those um, examples of unhealthy childhoods that people may be able to identify with and be like, oh, wait a minute. I didn't
Mhm.
even think, like, I thought my childhood was good, and I'm not trying to, rain on anybody's parade, but I think when we are unaware, when we don't even realize, okay, that was not healthy, then we end up repeating those same behaviors.
Yeah.
So what are some things that, we may have experienced that we don't even think as trauma that could be impacting us?
Yeah, the biggest, I would say, God, and I sometimes I don't like using things like the biggest or the most, but I really think it's safe to say that if this is not the biggest blind spot, it's number two, which is that the overworked mother and the rationalization of that really prevents children who are now us adults from being able to see the impact that that had. And what I mean by the rationalization of it is, let's say this was a single mother, which we know that that's just most people in general. Yes, it's worse for the Black community for sure, but at this point in America, people are growing up in single parent homes. It's an epidemic among, let's just say, Black and white, because the Asians, they tend to keep together. But anyway, um, so let's say we have the single mother, and because there was one income or just one person that was taking this was the primary caregiver, we know that she had to do it, right? Like, she, if she did not work, then who was going to feed the kids, right? Well, that has an impact. There's this whole miss of the physical presence in the house. We have latchkey kids. There's this whole miss of the emotional attunement because she just really doesn't have the energy. I don't. I mean, my parents were divorced, and I think my mother was a really amazing mother. And I also know, ain't no way you were working like this and you couldn't possibly have the energy to be emotionally engaged the way that you would be able to if there was a present and engaged father in the house. Right? It's just, we're just talking at this point numbers, just run the numbers. Okay? It's just literally not possible. So I think that one of the biggest blind spots is the mother who was working a lot and had to do it in order to keep everybody alive, and we miss all of the emotional engagement with the child. Now we could say the same thing on the father side, even if he was in the house, because we also hear that, right? That the father who was working a lot, it's the same thing, but it's more of an issue with the mother doing it, mainly because it's typically the mother who is the primary caregiver. So that's why I frame it that way. Although it does work on both sides, it's a bigger issue right now when we have the mother who's doing that.
And is that where the like theory of um one of the biggest indicators of what is it? It's like one of the biggest indicators of a healthy childhood is the happiness of the mother. Like if you are in this role, whether you're single or not, okay, because I am even, and I am never going to change my opinion on, the fact that a two-parent household is the ideal situation.
Mhm.
Never going to come off that soapbox. However, I do also understand and do also have personal experience in an unhealthy two-parent household. So just because you have a partner, just because you have a husband, just because you make a lot of money on your job, does not mean that you are mentally well. Which again, that's what this selfish summer is all about. Because baby, if you are not mentally well, you can think you're doing the best job that you possibly can, but your unhappiness is going to spread like wildfire throughout your household. It is. Okay. You can try to hide it all day long, but when you are stressed out, overworked, and feeling unappreciated, you can't, like, you could try to fake it till you make it all you want to, but it is going to have an impact on your children. And so I think that, it's just so important that we are able to look objectively as we can at ourselves as children, just so that we can really figure out like what the roots are.
Mhm.
Because if we are just, you know, well, excusing it, as you said, like minimizing it, or this is what she had to do. Yes, she did have to do it, but what was the impact of it? And
Mhm.
when we can see the impact of it, we can start saying, okay, well, I'm doing some of those same things because this is what I saw,
Mhm.
or I'm doing the complete opposite because this is what I saw. And we can just start peeling back those layers and unpacking it. So, unhealthy mothers, emotionally, is it like a lack of emotional intelligence? I think for sure our parents' generation, for the most part, they were not going to therapy. They were not doing no gentle parenting. They were not learning attachment styles.
No.
There's even that generational disconnect that I think is making a big impact too.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So there's just a lot of resources that we have available now. Of course, a lot more research has been done since we were kids. We have a lot more available to us. And I think that it sort of creates like this double-edged sword where we're so now empowered with this information. At the same time, it also makes us very aware of what we didn't get. And it makes us very aware of like, dang, like y'all could have done, could if you would have just done this or would have just done that. And I'm definitely talking about mothers and fathers. It is a two, the kids, we got two parents, everybody got two of them, regardless of where they at. Okay, you got two of them, and it's definitely a two-parent issue that creates these issues with the child. We have all this information now that now we're able to see all of the gaps, and I think that has its own trauma in and of itself.
So I think for women, for sure, it is so easy to um, like paint the picture when it comes to like our mothers because we can identify with them. It's
Mhm.
also easy to paint the pictures with like our men, with how we behave or relate in romantic relationships. But
Mhm.
it wasn't until I got down this rabbit hole that I realized how your attachment style can impact your friendships or lack thereof, your professional relationships. Like if you're always having these issues with management, if you're always having these issues with female friends. So talk us through
Yeah.
some of the other like implications that you may not have a secure attachment style.
Yeah, so your insecure attachment can show up in any context. So you named all of the big ones, right? Work, family, friendships. And so it's less about the context and more about and I'll explain what I mean by this. It's less about the context and who is doing what. It's more about what is happening between in those interactions and what those interactions are telling you, like what the meaning of those interactions are. Meaning that if someone is signaling to you rejection in any context and you have some unresolved issues that involve your parents especially, and it has to do with them rejecting you, not wanting you, not loving you, not accepting you, and you get that message from anybody, it's going to be a problem. Okay, we're just more likely to see this kind of stuff really flame up in really close relationships, unfortunately. Right, it's like I wish it was with the strangers that it wouldn't be a big deal. You could pop off with them, but it's always the people who are the closest to you, your best friend, right? Like your husband, your girlfriend, whatever. Like the people who are closest to you seems to flame up the most. And again, it's about the meaning of the interaction, regardless of the context. And when we're talking about insecure attachment, we're especially talking about interactions that signal to you rejection and abandonment, and that can come up anywhere.
Listen, yes, it can. And it isn't until you are triggered that you like, oh, what is triggering me? That is
Mhm.
something one of my first therapists taught me to do, was to think about what you're thinking about.
Mhm.
Like where, like the root of this thought, like why is this the thought that I'm having right now?
Yeah.
Like what in me is triggered by this thing, or what did you just say? Like how did I internalize that so that I can understand why I just went from 0 to 100 real quick when this was not even that. Like this was not even that big of a deal, but something in me remembered something that happened,
Yeah.
when I was 4 years old or whatever. But again, if we are not aware enough to recognize that, okay, my heart is beating fast, or I'm getting warm, or
Mhm.
I'm getting whatever that feeling is for you, if we are not able to recognize it, we're not going to be able to change it.
Yeah.
Somebody said we got to talk about the issues with management, and I don't know, spirit must have just dropped that, into my spirit to say, but I do think that
Yeah.
Black women get a bad rap. anyway, about having attitudes and not being able to work together and just all of the things.
Yeah.
But I do think that there, and for anybody, but I don't know everybody, I just know Black women. But I think that there's triggers, there's things that trigger us. There's these attachment styles that could be impacting why we have this attitude or why we are snappy or why we,
Yeah.
got to come back at you because we feel threatened or we feel judged or we feel whatever. So,
Mhm.
what are some ways that this could be showing up at work and you don't even realize it? You just think you just having all these problems at every single job?
It reminds me of Amanda Seals, but I don't want to get into that. I don't want to get. I don't want to. I do not want to get into that. Don't do that.
Listen, you open that can of worms, though. I think, and this is a safe space, y'all. Don't screen record this. Don't send this to no blogs. But listen, me being in therapy, and I'm a real rabbit hole kind of girl. All I kept taking away from everything,
Mm-hmm.
all the interviews, is like, where is the self-awareness? Where is the accountability? It cannot be everybody else. And if it is everybody else, what is it that what is your energy giving to these people? Why is everybody having this reaction to you? Is that what you got from it?
Yeah. In short, yeah, it's very, and I don't even like using this word. I don't like that she's labeled as like a victim Olympic winner, gold medalist. But honestly, is there a better example? I don't know. Is there? I don't know if there's a better example, right? Like it's really giving blind. Like it's just very, very. It's a lot of blame shifting. I would love to hear her talk about her part, but when every single story has nothing to do with you, you just happen to be there, and you always not only do you happen to be in the peripheral, you the target every single time. Something right, Amanda. I would love to talk to you,
Something's
Amanda.
not right, and at some point you have to say, what is it about me
Gotta be something
that is making you have this reaction or is making me triggered in a way that I have to give you this energy? Something. But this is the thing, y'all. We can sit back here and we can watch Amanda Seals because she is, a celebrity. We all have heard this. Most of us have seen these interviews. But 9 times out of 10, we are doing something in our day-to-day lives that we are not aware of.
Yeah.
That somebody has a perspective about us as well that we are not aware of. And I remember Taylor even asking you, like, before we were working together in this way, how did I show up? Like when I walked into the room, what was your perception of me? Because I want to know. I want to know the energy that I give off. I know I got a stank face, a resting bitch face. I got to fix it. But I'm aware enough to know that these are things that I got to work on. Some of us, we ain't seeing it. We don't want to hear about it. And we're going to be Amanda Seals to the day we die because it's everybody else and not us. So save us, Taylor. How can we not be that? I want better for us.
I think that, and I was actually, before we got on here, I thought about that. I thought about how every morning on tonight's conversations, we were in the same room, like right in the morning, we're in the same room. And you just even asking how you came off just speaks volumes, right? For anybody to even be willing to wonder, like, how is this coming off? Like, how do I sound? Checking in with people in our conversations, like after we say something, right? And not just bulldozing them maybe with our observations or with our conflict or with our comments or our critiques, but really pausing and asking, like, how does that sound to you? Like, how are you feeling right now as I'm talking about this? So that we can get some real, like, live feedback about how we are creating the experience that we're in, I think is huge. I'm thinking, are we talking about management too?
Well, the lack of self-awareness, because these issues, this attachment, and all of this stems back to your attachment style, right? In your childhood and all of the issues, the traumas, responses. But how can this be showing up in other ways and we don't even realize it?
Yeah. I think that if we don't get, let's tie it all together. If we're not getting feedback, we just won't know. So we got to be willing to ask, right? And we got to be around people that we trust to actually tell us. I mean, I wish that people had told me earlier how I was coming off. I really do. Now, I was also not asking, okay, because I thought I was good. I really thought I was good before I was good. And So if I don't ask the question and you also don't have people who are bold enough to just tell you, then we really have that. I don't know, some of y'all might have seen there's like a like quadrants of self-awareness. We have a blind spot where not only I don't know, literally I don't know what I don't know. And that's a really big problem. So I got to be open to feedback. It can be coming out. Our attachment style is coming out of course in conflict. So if you are getting these, if people are not inviting you to the work happy hours, okay, if every time you go into the break room they leave, there's probably something that you're giving that's helping to create that experience, right? Like if people are trying to give you, they used to give you feedback and then they stopped, like, and things are not okay, things are off. So there's so many different ways that our insecurities can manifest and create experiences at work or in friendships. But I guess like the bottom line is there's going to be breakdown, regardless of how it manifests. There's going to be breakdowns whenever our insecure attachment is flaring up, whenever it's affecting the environment, things break. Communication breaks down, friendships or relationships break. So if you're having strings of disconnections and ruptures, there's likely something that you're giving. Okay. It's not about it's all on you, but some of it's on you that could help to mend those relationships.
Listen, when I got out of an abusive relationship, and I don't even know how I had this level of awareness at 25 years old, now that I'm almost 40 and 25 seems so young. But my literal next thought after I like picked myself up off the floor was, what kind of mental state was I in to even attract this person? What kind of mental state was I in to even think that this was okay for this long of a time? And it was only 8 months, but for me to even be okay for 8 minutes in this situation, there was something wrong with me. And I need to be able to figure that out so that I don't ever attract a similar situation.
You
And
have
I
a
think
curious mind. Like a lot of people are not asking themselves that question.
Look, you're not gonna drag me twice, not for the same reason. You know, like I don't want to learn the same lesson twice. Lord Jesus, please, just one time. Teach me the whole lesson so that I can take this awareness and win. Like I don't want to get myself into the same mess again and again and again. But so many people don't, they just get caught up in the situation of what happened to them versus how did you even get here? Why did you even know this person? How did this person even get your like really figuring out like what were you going through that made you think that this was okay? So my last question about the work part, and if y'all have questions about attachment styles, drop them in the chat. But you mentioned if they're not inviting you to the happy hour. One thing that again I'm gonna say about myself, and I know this is the case for a lot of Black girls too, because I be seeing y'all talking about it on TikTok. What is the attachment style when you don't want to go to none of the happy hours? You don't want to hang out. You don't want to be at the water cooler. Like you leaving when you're done working.
Yeah, it's not always like some kind of deep issue with you, right? Like it might be just a level of self-awareness. Like those just aren't my people. Okay. Like, and when I say my people, I'm talking about people who like you would really want to hang out with, people who you would be friendly with, people who you like, you have the same interests, values, life goals, that kind of thing. That's what I mean when I say my people. Okay.
But if you're always avoiding, if you are being an introvert be an avoidant?
Could an introvert be an avoidant? Avoidant and introvert are different. So they can be the same, but they're not necessarily the same.
Okay.
Right. Like so I had a client like now, like maybe 2 years ago, who I thought put it in a really simple way. She was like, I feel like the difference between introversion and avoidant is like, am I going into my room and closing the door and reading this book because I really want to read the book? Or am I going into my room and closing the door and reading the book because I'm so uncomfortable that I have to escape? And I think that was a really just simple way to like easily see the distinction. Like, are you not accepting the invitation because you have an awareness that says I'm just not honestly not going to have a good time. Like, I don't really get along with these people just for like some real basic reasons. Like, I just really don't want to hang out with you. Or I'm tired. Like, that is very different than I'm afraid that if I go and they see me outside of a meeting, like I'm going to say something stupid and they're not going to like me anymore. I'm afraid that if they really see me up close, that like it'll ruin something at work. I'll say something that that isn't okay. They're gonna notice something about me that I'm insecure about. That's very different than like, well, I have a presentation tomorrow, so I'm not gonna go to the happy hour. Right.
Yeah.
So really like reflecting on why am I, and I think you've said this in different ways already tonight. Like really, what is this decision about? Like, what is my motivation to go into my room and read the book and close the door? Like, what is that really about? Is that a genuine, authentic, coming from a genuine, authentic, I think an empowered place, or is it coming from a place of fear? That's a good way to determine like, is this
Mhm.
an insecurity at work, or is this a genuine like Taylor decision? Is this a Coriel decision?
I think that's a really good question to ask yourself for the single ladies, okay? For the single ladies who desire a relationship, are you sitting at home every weekend because you truly want to catch up on that show, or are you sitting at home every weekend because you are avoiding meeting someone, or you're avoiding, what could come along with that? I think it's so good to really know what your intentions are, because to
Mhm.
your point, you could just really want to read that book, or you could be avoiding what you think that you can't have, or what you're not ready to work on, or all of that stuff that we
That's a good one. That's good. That's really good. I
don't
don't.
log off, y'all. Don't log off. Don't log off. Come back. Come back. Don't leave yet. Okay. I know some hit dogs gonna holler on that one. But look, self-awareness is for you at the end of the day, because you are not gonna get a prize for being self-aware. The prize is the life that you get to experience. The prize is you getting out of your own way. The prize is the quality of relationships that you get to experience because you've worked through your own ish.
Mhm.
Now therapy, talk therapy and all types of therapy can be super helpful in terms of healing and getting to a secure attachment. But another part of the reason and motivation behind this summit and these sessions specifically is because everybody can't afford a therapist. Everybody
Mhm.
doesn't have the time or the resources to, sit down one-on-one with a therapist. So what are some tools for people who are not, at the place right now where they can come and work with Taylor, even though,
Yeah.
y'all can follow her on Instagram and go work with Taylor. She has a whole program on attachment style. So I do want you to share that in just a second. But what are any other like hacks, resources, books, podcasts, anything that they can like just start tapping into to start working on themselves?
Yeah. So lots of things that you can do before going to therapy, or if now is just not a good time. And also, I recommend you might have already predetermined for yourself that you don't have the funds to do therapy. And I would recommend that you reach out anyway. Sometimes therapists, even if they don't take insurance, sometimes they're able to adjust, or they have set aside a certain number of hours that they'll do for less. I'm not guaranteeing that with nobody, and I'm also saying that it also doesn't hurt to ask, right? So before you kind of count yourself out because of money, at least like get tapped into somebody, get connected with somebody, have a consult, get their perspective. You can get a free 20 minutes or 30 minutes with plenty of therapists that can help to give you some hopefully give you some direction based on what you really need as an individual, because podcasts and Instagram accounts and things, they don't know you. And so it's really important to get connected with somebody, because although there is a way to, for example, like heal your attachment, there are certain things about each individual that need certain types of attention. So I just recommend getting in touch with somebody and really sharing about you as an individual. Angie, thanks for following on the podcast. I have a podcast called Boundaries and Grace. There is tons. I have like 115 episodes right now or something like that. Is so much information about attachment on my podcast. Um, so that's on Apple, Spotify, and the most recent season is on YouTube. The ones that are specific, like really about attachment, are going to have them in the title. Are going to have attachment things in the title. A lot of things about emotional intelligence and stuff. So podcasts are great. Some things that you can do, like some practices that you can do right now, aside from listening to podcasts or finding good Instagram accounts, is journaling. Journaling is so underrated. Okay. Journaling is so underrated, and journaling with a feelings wheel. Okay, the feelings wheel. Okay, the
If
feelings
you didn't
wheel.
mention the feelings wheel, I was gonna mention the feelings wheel.
Okay, look, because you know people sigh when you were sighing when you see the feelings wheel, but that may be helping. Okay.
It helps you to really like put words to your feelings
Yes.
and not just these surface level feelings that I be thinking.
Yes. I mean, I was just reading an article right here in Psychology Today. I have it right in front of me. There's a term called emotional granularity, and it's about being specific, like grains, being really specific, not just I'm sad, not just I'm upset, but are you disappointed? Do you feel betrayed? Are you feeling, do you feel rage? Right? Are you happy or are you excited? Do you feel shocked? Are you confused? Like, so there's some really specific emotions that you're going to see on the feelings wheel. And it helps us to be able to identify literally what's going on with us internally. Not only does it give us language, but you all might have heard the cliche phrase, if you can name it, you can tame it. And it sounds kind of corny, but it's actually, there's research behind this that if you can name it, it helps us to be able to then strategize on how to resolve it. But if I don't know what it is, I don't know what to do about it. So the feelings wheel, I mean, I was when I first when I was becoming a therapist and I had to do, like, we had to do group therapy and stuff. I was a terrible client. I was like, this is so lame. I'm not doing a feelings wheel. Like, I don't need that. But I mean, and I was so arrogant. And I love the feelings wheel. I love it for myself. I love it for my clients. And the research really does tell us that it helps us even in the naming of it, in the looking at the feelings wheel and choosing a word, that in and of itself helps to decrease anxiety and stress. So y'all get on that feelings wheel. You can just Google it. Okay. I use the Calm feelings wheel. I've heard of like the Calm app. So that's the one I like. I like the colors on it, but they're just online. You just click. I mean, you can put it on your phone. You can print it out, stick it in your journal. But I really cannot emphasize enough how much the feelings wheel can help. And it's something that you can just put in your hands right now today and start journaling. One of the reasons why insecure attachment can feel so overwhelming for people is because we don't have a hold on the thing that's going on inside of us. It's not just the thing that's triggering us on the outside, but it's that I don't have a hold of what's going on me on the inside. I don't know what it is, and I don't know how to bring it back down. And so journaling helps us to like really flesh out our own thoughts. It doesn't mean that you're solving it, but understand that the process of solving these emotional issues or these relational issues, it's it's a process, meaning that like just literally looking at it is part of the solution. Okay, of like bringing it back down. So journaling is something you can do right now. The feelings wheel is something you can put on your phone right now. Another thing you can do that's a bit more something that I think you can do, but I would also recommend that if you do it, that you talk about it with a therapist when you can. But it will help you to bring some awareness to like some of these attachment issues that you know you have attachment issues right now, but you're not sure where they came from. Give yourself some time to think about 3 to 5 core experiences from childhood. We talked about childhood a lot tonight. 3 to 5 core experiences from childhood. What happened? What did you think? What were you thinking when it happened? And what did you feel when it was happening? It's so simple, but it's so powerful. What happened? What was I thinking when it happened? And how did it feel when it happened? Okay. And do that for like 3 to 5 experiences. And these are things that you've likely thought about before, like memories that you don't know like why it comes up. It might be in like dreams or even nightmares that you have literally when you're sleeping. So 3 to 5 core experiences from your childhood. What happened? What was I thinking when it happened? And how did it feel when it happened? That in and of itself is healing, right? That's what we all like this like self-validation thing, right? Like we know that we're not supposed to be getting validation from other people. And part of the reason why we have anxious attachment especially is when we're wanting to get validation through someone else. But even just going through this process of reflecting, it's me validating myself that this was important and this hurt, or this was important and it confused me. And that in and of itself is part of this healing process. So that's something that you can do like right now. You'll probably see some themes of like that rejection and abandonment. Understand that just writing it isn't the whole solve of it, but it is a step forward in just validating that it's something that needs attention And then that's something that it gives you a good starting point when you're working with a therapist.
So for people who are interested in your program attached, who is it for? Like, who would be a good person that is like, do they have to have this certain level of awareness or be in a certain, season? Like, who would be a good person?
I've had people in my groups and one-on-ones in all different, I mean, literally, I don't even, every single walk of life, every single season of life, whether you're single or you're in a relationship or you're married or you have kids, they're 18 and up, or you have kids and they're really young, or you're divorced, you're newly dating, you're afraid of dating, you're 50, you're 28. Like it's a range, okay, of people. So the most important thing for me is that you're willing to be wrong. Like that's I think number one, because we behave in ways that we really think make sense, and we found some way to justify our behavior. And so if we really want something to change, we have to be willing to look at our things in the way that we've been behaving and thinking, and think there might be a different way. There might be a different way to be, might be a different way to think. These conclusions that I've drawn might not be the only way to look at this. And that's the most important thing, is just being open.
So I am Taylor Chandler on Instagram. Make sure y'all follow her, stay connected so you can learn more about the program, but she is always dropping gems. So stay connected. Taylor, I appreciate you as always. Thank you so, so much for spending your Monday with us. Thank you for being a part of the summit.
Thanks for having me. Bye, Coriel.
Woo! Yes, yes, yes. All right, y'all. Listen, we have made it to the end of day 2. Drop an emoji in the chat. Let me know just how hurt your feelings are, how snatched your edges are. Okay. When it comes to truly investing in yourself, self awareness has to be part of it. Okay. You can't just be investing in yourself to look good. If the inside does not match the outside, then you are wasting your time. And one of the ways that we can truly start living the life that God created us to live is to get over our ish so that we can start walking into our next season. Okay, we can't go into that new season with all this old ish. So we got to be willing to unpack these bags, leave that baggage behind so that we can step into our blessings. I believe that there are blessings out there with your name on them, baby. But in order for you to get in position, you got to get prepared. And part of that preparation is just showing up for yourself. Showing up for yourself, learning as much as you possibly can about yourself, getting curious about yourself. And then start making some changes, start making some shifts. It's not going to happen overnight, but just you being here, y'all, just you still being here at the very last minute shows your commitment and really shows that you are ready to make a change. Something is shifting in the atmosphere, y'all. Okay. I love y'all. Thank you for being here. If you missed any part of tonight, this same link will bring you back to the replay so you can watch it again and again and again. If you have not taken the attachment styles quiz, at this point, you probably have an idea of where you fall in line, but still take the quiz. It's short and sweet and will help just provide you with a little bit more awareness. If you have not gotten the wellness work bundle yet, definitely make sure you do that. Taylor just talked about the value and benefit of journaling. There are 150 journal prompts inside of that bundle. If you don't know where to start, I know for me, if I just sit down with a blank notebook, I don't always know where to go. And so journal prompts can definitely help you. Along with the journal prompts, there are hobby ideas, healing modalities for you to try out. There's a 12-week planner, a personal planner. And the best part about it all is that when you sow a seed, you are saving a sis. So 100% of the proceeds from the wellness work bundles are going to be donated to a woman in need. All right. Now, depending on what amount it is, she might be getting a trip to the spa. She might be getting a bill paid. I don't know. But depending on, how much we raise, I guess this is like a fundraiser. I don't know. But depending on how much is raised, we'll be able to decide who we can serve and how we can pay it forward. So thank you to everyone that has already grabbed it. If you don't know what I'm talking about, check your email. I will see y'all right back here tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern. Tomorrow is our Well Lived Life panel. It's our first panel of the summit. I'm excited and I will see y'all there.